everybody, welcome to the Innsmouth Case Part 2, where we finish up the story for this playthrough. We're catching up right where we left off in Part 1, so if you missed that, it's still on the channel. Alright, here we go. Innsmouth Harbor is signposted much better than the local hospital. You wonder if a hospital is even needed here. It's a half-hour walk. A mile-long carpet of cobblestones is now ahead of you. The traffic in Boston is more hectic, but at least they have heard of asphalt before. Fancy. Like, thinking, we don't even have sidewalks around where I live, like, and potholes the size of, like, the actual earth. Let's not complain, alright? This is a demon town. At least it's better than Indiana, apparently. As you keep walking, there are fewer and fewer residential buildings along your path. In their stead, there are now warehouses that must be fish markets due to the smell. You can also hear the occasional metallic clanking from nearby workshops. People in gray raincoats are walking toward you. They're probably fishermen who have some errands to run. Now and again in that split second when you pass one another, you catch a glimpse of the faces hidden under their hoods, and wonder if one of them is the Gorns fisherman. Puffy eyes that look at you suspiciously. Although there are a few clouds in the sky, there's no chance of rain as far as you can tell. Why are they all wrapped up like that? You wonder if they have a sixth sense for approaching storms. Or dead people. The sound of the rhythmic blows of a hammer nearby tears you away from these thoughts. It would be interesting to watch the work in a shipyard, but little Tabitha is unlikely to be here to play. From a distance you can already see the masts of the boats which rise up into the sky like a row of spears. You walk along a small street at the quay, with the harbor basin just behind it. Just breathe in the sea breeze, the little girl can wait. Look around. The view of the harbor is splendid. Boats of all shapes and sizes are coming and going, nets are being emptied out, and fish seem to be endlessly splashing into huge freezer boxes. Local trades are being sealed with handshakes, and at the end of a wide headland, a huge lighthouse watches majestically over the bay. The ideal postcard motif if it weren't for the people. Also, could be a BioShock Infinite crossover. You only know fishermen from the movies, and you have to admit that you have certain prejudices. These include, they have weather-beaten skin, and the captains always have well-groomed beards. They are either strong, silent types, or hard-drinking lads who sing filthy sea shanties. But these creatures in front of you are neither majestic nor Harry, I would assume. I don't know what's Larry. Is Larry a word? Am I about to learn something? Hold on. Google. It is I. I'm trying to figure out if I can win my next. Cunning or conceited. So
Larry is cunning or conceited, or ostentatiously attractive and flashy.
Well, I've learned something today. I guess that library sciences degree was for nothing.
You guys, I'm like really smart now. You don't even know.
They move around much more like tragic hunchbacks you'd expect to see in French cathedrals. A few yards to the right, there is a fork in the road and a road sign pointing further north. Its inscription reads, Innsmouth Paradise Beach. In the far distance, you can see a building that looks like a church. Hang on, a church on the coast? How eccentric. You go to the church. The church is located on a hill overlooking the harbor. You're immediately drawn towards it. You stroll along the docks towards the cliffs. You take in the pleasant sea breeze and the hustle and bustle on the ships. Your original mission pops into your mind. This place is so relaxing, it's just too easy to forget about the little girl. Or maybe you're just terrible at your job. Out of the corner of your eye, you can see 3 fishermen whose boat has just moored. They are not working. In fact, they are not doing anything. They're just standing there staring at you. I mean, that's what I did at most of my jobs. That feeling of serenity is slowly overtaken by anxiety. My life story. What are you looking at me for? What? Become Robert De Niro. You shout across at them, giving them an aggressive look. You bet these little sea oafs have never before come across a tough city type such as yourself. One of the 3 still observes you with mild interest. The others are already looking at their nets. After a few yards, you turn around again. They're all gone. The crew must have disappeared below deck in their little boat. What a strange bunch. Suddenly it's utterly plausible to you that people in this town could disappear just like that. You're a little closer to the church building now, and you're relieved to find that there are a few dozen people outside its gates, and they're not the usual creepy Innsmouth kind. The group are gesticulating and discussing something in a very animated manner. Normal people! It's not a great book. They should discuss something else. As you reach the courtyard, you're able to assess the situation a little better. 2 groups, with about the same number of people, are confronting one another, surrounded by a few more reserved onlookers. 2 shouty people, who appear to be the representatives of the 2 camps, are facing each other. A bronze plaque is displayed above the gates to the entrance.
Engraved on it, Esoteric Order of Dagon. I kind of want to join the crowd and see what's going on. You walk up to the crowd. You peek over the shoulders of the stocky figures in front of you, who are listening to the two men, and occasionally nod or mumble words of dissent. One of the two squabblers, a weather-beaten man with bulging eyes, is just about to launch into the finale of his speech. And therefore Dagon is the one God who created us in his own image, and his only son is Obed Marsh, who came to earth as man, and he is Dagon himself, because we— No, his counterpart interrupts. He is a bearded professor type, dressed in a gray wool sweater, who highlights every word with an aggressive jab of the pipe in his hand. Dagon is the creator of the world, but he is above us. He has no children, or nothing even close to this kind of thing. Even saying that is heresy. It's in the writings of his prophet Abdul al-Hazred. With a scrunched-up face and a high-pitched voice, the sailor repeats these last words. Abdul al-Hazred! What a lord of horse dung! The crowd is now on fire. Their fists are raised, and there's a crackling tension among the onlookers. Oh yeah? And the whole Obed Marsh was born by Immaculate Conception when Marianne Marsh was bathing in the sea? Story? What do you call that? She was blessed there to receive Obed, and you know it! The bug-eyed sailor shouts out, no longer trying to contain his anger. You know it! He adds, hissing quietly. That's how I end all of my sentences when I'm arguing with someone, when I'm debating. I just hiss at them like a cat. It really throws them off. It's a way you totter an entire debate. The ongoing murmur of the crowd is occasionally drowned out by the heavy breathing of the two main speakers. It's becoming an ASMR convention. The crowd is up in arms. I don't have any way to get involved. Except like maybe take a pamphlet, so I'm just gonna go into the church. Why not? You're already here after all. Almost immediately, two grumpy-looking men, clothed like fishermen, stand in your way, preventing you from entering the church. They seem to have a competition going as to who can give you the most sinister look. What now? I need to go in there. You murmur, a little intimidated. I don't think so, scoffs the younger of the two. Yeah, I don't think you need to go in here. This is only for the children of Dagon. The older one grunts. They look at you with a glint in their eyes. Leave the churchyard. You decide to leave. Other than religious fanatics, the Church of Dagon does not seem to have much else to offer, and there are enough of those in Boston. You walk down the sloping path from which you have come until you are back at the quay wall of the harbor. You go to the lighthouse. Initially, it looked as if the lighthouse was quite close, but as you keep walking, you realize that the trip is much longer than you expected. It's so long it requires a scene shift. A path consisting of jagged rocks leads to the lighthouse in the harbor. The lighthouse is on the end of a narrow strip of land, and as you walk towards it, the surging waves risk drenching your clothes in icy salt water. It takes all your concentration and some balancing not to wipe out on the slippery rocks. In your mind's eye, new bills are already fluttering in the mailbox, one from the shoe repair shop and one from the physiotherapist. An overturned wooden sign lies on the ground between a few of the rocks. You read the label, warning, absolutely no trespassing. Innsmouth hasn't been precisely inviting since your arrival, so you already know the tune. You approach the lighthouse looking for shelter, but with every step you take, the place becomes more and more unwelcoming. The gray clouds transform into a mighty storm. Lightning strikes the top of the tower and sparks fly. Despite the storm, the lighthouse keeper hasn't put on the signal, so there is no beam of light to guide boats out there safely to the harbor of Innsmouth. Soon you're completely drenched, but you make it. At last, you're standing at the door leading to the inside of the lighthouse. Some joker has scratched something into the flaking white layer of paint on the surface of the door. Do not come any closer, they want your body. This definitely sounds like the Jared Leto one. It sounds suspiciously like a sex cult. Oh, one hears about these sex cults all the time. You regularly watch documentaries about them on special websites that you visit in incognito mode. This special and intensive form of preparation should have taught you everything you need to know and do if you ever encounter a cult. You tuck your underwear into place and walk purposefully forward. After all, you're on a mission. You consider the dangers that this dilapidated old building may hold, a fragile building about to collapse. UFO nutters with aluminum hats, sex-hungry, mindless, and naked cultists, house dust, not to mention the missing girl that you need to find. Still, how often do you come to a place like this? If house dust is part of a cult, I am a leader. Almost automatically, your hand comes to rest on the black iron door handle and pushes it down slowly and carefully. The door opens a crack, giving you a small glimpse into the neglected interior of the lighthouse. Darkness. Enter. Unsure of what to do next, you peek into the darkness. It's a dark, tall building. A very, very tall and thin building, admittedly. It is highly unlikely that the lighthouse will collapse today, of all days. At least this is what you keep repeating in your mind, like a mantra. You step inside. It's dry but cold. The icy, stale air cools your shivering limbs even further. A spiral staircase leads up to the higher levels and to the top of the lighthouse. On the higher floors, you can see round windows in the side of the wall, through which thunder and lightning throw brief flickers of light. It's electrifying. Even the lowest corridor catches some of this light, so that you find yourself not completely in the dark. There are also some lamps that wind up along the banister. The black and white tiles on the floor have probably not been cleaned since the dawn of time. Storage boxes are cluttered around the place and take up about a third of the area of the ground floor. To your astonishment, the walls of the lighthouse consist of a solid stone foundation. The metallic red and white painted exterior cladding must have been installed sometime later as a modernization measure. You think that a sex cult in here is now a bit unlikely, but you do not want to give up hope just yet. You do not want to give up hope just yet. You're like, I'm ready. Are there pamphlets? What now? Flip the light switch. Trying won't hurt, unless of course you blow a fuse. You flip the light switch and wait in the twilight for something to happen. You know from old lamps in the cellar, they sometimes need a little time. You flip the switch again and again, you come to the conclusion that you'll have to make do with the pale daylight. As you look more closely, you realize that there's an inscription just above the light switch. Read the inscription. You manage to make out, activate to close the electrical circuit. Electricity powers many machines, especially those giving off light and warmth. Indeed, that is how light switches work. Well, observe, strange person who wrote on the wall. Inspect the boxes. Considering that the lighthouse is easy to reach from the port, it strikes you as odd that there are all of these supplies here. The boxes seem to hold food supplies, which make up the bulk of the goods, and loads of spare electrical parts. You inspect one of the open crates that, according to its label, has been delivered by a company from Salem. Spare lamps, tools, wiring, in theory even a dusty system such as this one can be brought back to life with all these parts. The food is not quite to your taste, but efficient. Tinned tuna, sauerkraut, and all kinds of canned fruit still fill over half of one of the open crates. 4 of the boxes are empty, 12 others are still untouched. Whoever lived here must have avoided contact with the locals like the devil avoiding holy water. Finally, some sensible people climb up the stairs. The banister has suffered the most age damage. The ravages of time have not only worn away the paint on the metal, but also the iron struts and pillars themselves. The scaffold seems to move precariously as you walk up, just as if the construction is about to collapse. When you're halfway up the stairs, you can hear a loud metallic creaking sound. The stairway suddenly jerks down a little and your insides feel like they continue dropping to the ground. Fine dust flutters down onto your head. You try to guess the depths of the fall. If the structure were to collapse now, you would break quite a few bones. Or worse. The chances of you getting caught up in a sex cult decrease with every step you take. Oh, why am I so lonely in this game? Why am I just so desperate to become part of a sex cult? Keep walking. I just want friendship. Just because the core of the spiral staircase is a bit loose, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to collapse, right? And perhaps it's just the residual alcohol in your bloodstream that's causing everything to spin. You carefully continue your way to one of the higher floors. About 30 feet above the entrance hall is the first mezzanine floor. A metal plate in the core of the spiral staircase would also provide some stability if the whole thing wasn't so damn rusty. You could see a plain bed, a desk with a telephone, a chest of drawers, and a wardrobe with an embedded mirror. A Persian carpet is laid out over the ribbed metal floor, a pathetic attempt to make this room a little more homely. At least there is a window on this level. Rain pelts against the glass, the weather outside seems to be getting worse and worse. You hesitate. Keep walking up. You think you have seen enough and continue to follow the banister up the stairs. Meanwhile, thunder and lightning outside have become so furious, just as if the center of the storm is the lighthouse itself. Stoically, you continue your way upstairs. The banister continues to wobble and squeak suspiciously, but it withstands the strain. The radius of the spiral staircase gradually becomes smaller. You estimate that you are now halfway up the building. You walk past another platform floor. This level is obviously used for nothing else but storing boxes. At least 30 or 40 stacked boxes full to brim with books. Seeing all these books causes a warm, fuzzy feeling. How adorable! The previous lighthouse keepers must have been bibliophiles. You hope that you get to meet them, even though the place does look pretty deserted. I mean, if it's a sex cult, they do like to get under covers, right? You hesitate and inspect the books. You take a moment to examine the boxes and their contents more closely. Quickly, you realize that these are almost exclusively non-fiction books. You discover lexicons, grammar for English and Spanish, non-fiction books on biology, chemistry, physics, and geography. There is also a Bible, a guide to etiquette, and a worn handbook for tourists on the East Coast. Out of interest, you flip through some of the books. The newest ones seem to be from around the 1980s, but some go as far back as the 20s. Many are decorated with strange curls around the edges. In the last box, you find a few books that differ greatly from the scientific character of the rest. These are books about occultism and obscure religions, titles like The Mysteries of the Worm, Unspeakable Cults, and Liber Ivoris. Then there's also a book by a popular UFO nutcase, and suddenly everything makes sense. They like Blink-182. It's Tom DeLonge. Maybe the lighthouse keeper was a little soft in the head, probably the loneliness. You keep walking up the stairs past another mezzanine, and then you're on the upper level of the lighthouse. It's getting more and more unlikely that you'll find anything relating to your case here. But we didn't even care about the case a minute ago. We were just about the sex cult. Oh well. Up to the last level. The steps are always the hardest. Or was it the first ones? No matter which steps, your heart is now beating so strongly that you can feel it pressing against your chest. Once you're back home, you should really consider a healthier lifestyle. At last, you have reached the top floor of the lighthouse. Dull glass windows separate you from the thunderstorm outside. Rain pours down on the panes, and lightning occasionally illuminates the sky and reveals the billowing sea. I feel like this is a Hilary Duff music video setting. If you were an artist, this would be the ideal place to paint tasteless paintings with ships on the churning waters. Look, listen, alright? Bob Ross used to paint stuff like that. Don't be coming at him. In the center of the floor, there is a metal column that must be there to support the lighthouse uppermost platform. You assume that all this serves to stabilize and balance the construction. Apart from that, the floor is completely unfurnished. Sheets of paper with strange doodles are fixed to some of the window panes. Pencil portraits of people, trees, houses, dogs. Around each drawing, someone seems to have made notes, but you can't make out the language. You wonder if it was a destitute artist who lived here towards the end, or some sort of Russian sleeper agent. Another ramp leads to the top of the lighthouse where the actual lighthouse apparatus must be installed. You walk up the steep stairs. You've done it! You made it to the top of the lighthouse. Not in a million years did you think that this job would take you to such an exciting place in a boring coastal town. There is still a nasty thunderstorm out there, and the lightning keeps illuminating the glass cage in erratic intervals. Spellbound, you look at the roaring waves. They're beautiful. The powerful and steady movement of the waves, the foamy salt water splashing up oh so incredibly high. You're so enticed by all that majestic beauty that you almost wish you were outside now to feel the fresh sea breeze on your skin. But wait, why did you come here again? You try to tear yourself away from the endless spectacle of the sea and turn your attention to the center of the small glass dome. It is then that you make a curious observation. The lighthouse has no light at all. There is no light construction that could rotate in the direction of the harbor or the sea, not even a flashlight on a microphone stand. Where you would expect some sort of electrical machine, there is only a black column of about 3 feet height, whose curved forms merge at the top into a kind of marble plate. An altar. A voice in the back of your head informs you. There's a cube on the altar. I want to look at the cube. It's a great horror movie. Why would I not? Intrigued, you walk closer. The material of the cube must be bronze. It glistens dully in front of the black marble column. The object looks as if it belongs just there. It's perfect right where it is. Everything looks as if it's been made from one piece. What you first thought was some arbitrary decoration turns out to be hieroglyphics, cranes, simple tools, knowing eyes. So it was an artist. Curiously, you walk to the column on which the cube rests. What are Egyptian hieroglyphics doing in a lighthouse on the east coast of the United States? Your fingers are itching. You take the cube into your possession. Just for a brief second, you simply have to hold the bronze cube in your hands, feel the texture of its surface on your fingertips, inspect the hieroglyphics more closely, measure its exact weight, smell it, look it. You have to know everything, absolutely everything about it. You extend your hand and touch the cube. You're like Mulder in the X-Files. And now, you can't let go of it again. It seems to have melted into your skin or somehow attached itself to you. Yes, it has sucked itself onto you, and it continues to suck. So I guess it's the sex cult after all. Oh, okay, we're back. Your consciousness and your soul. Everything is now trapped in a never-ending slipstream coming from this cube. You feel like you are caught in a mighty vortex that pulls you down deeper and ever deeper. All of a sudden, you have a strange out-of-body experience and start to see yourself from the perspective of the cube. You feel something unbelievably strange beside you. Some sort of being has emerged from the depth of the vortex and is passing you by to float in the opposite direction. Your soul is swallowed by the cube and something strange occupies your body, loosens the last anchors, and pushes you over the edge. You cling desperately to your mortal shell, and then your consciousness starts to crumble. For a brief moment, you think that from the perspective of the cube, you're looking at eyes that no longer belong to you, then everything goes black. I feel like this is just how living in 2020 feels. So where the hell are we? What is going on? As you wake up from restless dreams, a bright light shines into your eyes. It feels like a burning sensation directly penetrating into your brain. After the initial shock, you gradually come to your senses. You are no longer in the lighthouse. I'm apparently being interrogated by Cthulhu. You find yourself in a huge round chamber made of dark, smooth stone. Curved lines adorn the walls and give off a soft fluorescent glow. You begin to wonder how many hours you've been knocked out. Did you have a stroke? No wonder, given all the stress you constantly put yourself under. A sound, a chirping and clacking that vaguely reminds you of insects. Only it's louder, and it seems to be coming from directly behind you. You're in Kafka's Metamorphosis. Someone's in this room with you. You turn around quickly, trying to find the source of the clacking sound, and you regret it immediately. Hideous, bizarre monsters are lined up in front of you like on the set of a bad horror movie. They're basically just huge cones of flesh covered with a thin film of slime. Oh my god! It's like it's got a bass speaker for a hand. I love it. You instinctively think of your landlady. Don't we all? Fond memories from a hot evening one August. Mrs. Valdeglort, definitely not stolen from Voldemort, was once again upset about a missing payment, scolding you and at the same time sweating in the yellowish light of the evening sun. Sweat formed on her face and collected on her upper lip. You were completely hypnotized by this sight, which was not conducive to the ongoing rent discussions, but right now you have other problems. The flesh cones are a bizarre sight. Your mind is having trouble processing what it sees. At the top of the flesh cones, there are 4 tentacle-like growths, each ending in a different organ. 2 form huge sharp claws that appear to be clicking incessantly. Another one ends in a jumble of trumpet-like tubes, and a 4th one forms what you think is the head of the creature. A round organ with 3 eyes, a set of feelers above, and a ring of tentacles just below. Half a dozen of these creatures now stare at you from their bright yellow eyes, clicking their scissors menacingly. One of the beings breaks away from the group and comes towards you with its claws raised. What if they're just like, we just want to start an Etsy shop? Like, these are just scissors, they're just crafting. You do the only rational thing. You try to run away. The creature moves like a snail. It has no legs. Rather, its base expands and contracts again. Another feature it has in common with snails is that it is not particularly fast. You look around and scan the room. There is a door on the other side. You start running. But nothing happens. You want to move your feet, but something feels wrong. The creature's getting closer. It has already covered over half the distance between you. A feeling of doom sets in. Why can't you move? You can't even feel your legs. You are trapped somehow, tied down perhaps? You look down at yourself. But instead of your hands, these scissors at the end of tentacles appear in front of your eyes. You stare down at yourself in disbelief and find yourself transformed into a monstrous vermin. That was me when I turned 25. I was just like, oh, okay, well, here's what I am now. Where you were expecting to see your legs, there is only a fleshy cone from which 4 tentacles grow a pitiful claw arm, a trumpet-like extension, and your neck. All I can think of it is the claw. I'm so sorry, that's all I can think of. You are no longer in your own body. What is happening to me, you ask yourself, but you already know it yourself. You are one of those monsters. You faint, you should be able to understand me now. You open your eyes. You're still in the same position where you lost consciousness. Only a brief moment seems to have passed, but what is this pinching feeling on your neck? Looks like a small device has been attached to your new body. Waking up in a new body is disturbing. I understand that. So first of all, let me reassure you that this state is not permanent, and when you return, you won't remember anything. You hear the voice not through your ears or the comparable organ in this body, but directly in your head. In your head, zombie. What you hear is the clicking of scissors. I've attached a translation device to you. We can now discuss all the questions you no doubt have. Evidently, the beings communicate with each other via their scissors. So what would you like to do? What would you like to know? What has happened to my body? Mention your vegan diet! I've gotta do it. I've gotta do it. If you're on a vegan diet and no one hears about it, does it even happen? I'm hungry. I only eat vegetarian food. Do you have good vegetarian snacks? The creature nods confusedly. Strange question, but yes, it is very important that the food is completely plant-based. Oh, don't worry. We are all vegetarians. There are no other food options. Our species has evolved to the point where we have been feeding ourselves for ages without harming other intelligent life. Somehow this answer doesn't make you as happy as it should. There's no sense of that unusual feeling of moral superiority that settles in when you talk about your eating habits. You feel a little down. The yith clacks insecurely with its scissors. So should I get you something to eat? Oh, never mind, you say glumly. I'm not that hungry after all. I do have to say, like, the beginning of this game was like, we're super chill. We're not trying to offend anybody. And then they've just been attacking vegans the whole game. I'm like, what happened? Who hurt you? I would like to know where I am. The creature is thinking. You are in Australia. Huh? You've always imagined Australia differently. The important question is, when are you? Clicks one of the beings from further back in the room. The creature close to you abruptly turns its long neck towards the heckler. Damn it, Frank! That's my favorite part of the newcomer lecture. Don't spoil it for me! Although you do not yet have much control over your new body, you can apparently roll your eyes. Okay, when am I? But the creature in front of you seems to be in a huff. Man, it's no fun now. You are on Pangaea in the Permian period, in the late Paleozoic era, where in the distant future Australia will one day arise, about 250 million years before we picked you up. This bitch don't know about Pangaea. Time travel, question mark? I've traveled through time. Now it's the creature's turn to roll its eyes. To make this brief, yes, you did. Yes, like on TV, just completely different. No, we don't keep a record of lottery numbers. No, we have no interest in killing fascists while they're still children. No, we cannot start any paradoxes. The universe is predetermined and free will is an illusion. Yes, that can be a bit depressing at times, but also very liberating if you think about it for a moment. Yes, we also know about Back to the Future. Any other questions? Yes, if you can time travel, why do I have to wait here for years for my body to be released? Would it not be possible to send me back to the point in time where your colleague leaves my body at this very moment? The creature nods slowly. Yes, you'd think, wouldn't you? No further explanation seems forthcoming. Ask another question. What has happened to my body? The translator transforms your thought into clicking sounds. You can only hope that the pressing nature of your question has not been lost in translation. Yes, that's the unpleasant part of the lecture. He touched one of our carefully placed transmitters, so your mind was switched with one of our agents. Carefully placed transmitter? You mean the cube? The cube at the top of the abandoned and locked lighthouse in the forgotten backwoods village in the middle of nowhere? I guess. The transmitter is placed in a way that ensures that it is only found by people who are not easily missed. While you are here, our agent is gathering vital information about your society and environment using your body. You are to remain here in his body and must wait until he has completed his mission. Then we will erase your memory so you won't take any of our superior knowledge with you and send you back. And how long does that normally take? The creature answers sheepishly, 3 to 10 years max. This information hits you like a kick in the stomach, which in this body seems to be at the bottom of the fleshy cone. It's a very unusual feeling. 3 to 10 years? You mean Earth years? What am I supposed to do in the meantime? Well, we've got a lot of things to read around here. Also, we'd like you to write down your life story for us. An autobiography for the Great Library, preserved for all eternity. A bit of immortality most beings in this galaxy dare not even hope for. Oh dear, but I'm on a mission. I need to find a little girl. People are counting on me. The creature looks at you with something that, even despite the strange facial features, you manage to recognize as skepticism. If your mission was so important, why did you waste so much time in the lighthouse? Good question, actually. You need to accept that your mission is over. Try to use your time productively here. So what would you like to know? Who are you? The creature straightens up. We, the translation in your head begins with an air of gravitas, the great race of Yith. We are the wisest species in the whole of creation. Countless eons ago, but also in the distant future, we made it our mission to gather all the knowledge of the universe. We have sent our agents through space and time to observe and study. When we learned of our own demise in this way, we transplanted our spirits en masse into this form that you now see before you. Your new friend seems to want to do a playful pirouette to show off his body, but since he is resting on a slimy snail's foot, the process takes a good 2 minutes. Snazzy, isn't it? So functional and sturdy. His scissors rub against each other with your device translate as a bashful coughing. Anyway, to answer your question more directly, I am Martin. My colleagues and I are archivists in the Great Library of Pennacotus, Department of Human Studies, Western Hemisphere Subdivision, Pre-Nuclear America Working Group, or as we call ourselves, the Tough Amoebicides. As if they've rehearsed it before, the other Yith in the room begin to shout, Tough Amoebicides. So they're all TAs. Ask another question. I have no question. The creature seems to be baffled by this. Really? None? Nope. Okay, in that case, you'll set you up for a training so you can get to know your new body a bit better. Once you've made some progress, we will teach you to write in Yith, and then you can start with writing down your life story. Frank, can you give me a hint here? Frank arrives with a machine that looks like a mix between a forklift truck and a spatula. He carefully scrapes your currently still useless snail body off the floor and transports you out of the room. They need that for bars. First, you learn to control your new body. The trumpet-like extensions, which simultaneously serve as a breathing organ, mouth, and waste outlet, prove to be the biggest challenge. You can only eat if your whole body is working on the task. That's me too, though. You almost suffocated several times while eating. And again, I relate to that. You sincerely hope that the agent using your human body is doing a better job of it. Then you start to learn the curved script of the Yith. In fact, everything in the culture of the Yith is curved, smooth, or circular. They have an extreme aversion to right angles. When you ask Frank about it, he replies, something about the dogs of the Tindalo who live in the corners of time and hunt time travelers. Fair enough. You start to settle in. All in all, Yiths prove to be quite boring people once you actually get to know them. Their bodies do not allow for much mobility, they have no sense for fiction, and they reproduce via spores, a very impersonal process which ensures that sex and love and all the dramas associated with them are completely unknown in their society. No Beverly Hills 90210 Yith. Since you are living in a host body, you are not allowed to take drugs or participate in any exciting or dangerous activities. The vegetarian food of the Yith is either very bland or their taste buds are not very developed. Perhaps it's by design, since this species takes in and excretes food through a single organ. You would kill for a bag of potato chips. Then comes the point where you're asked to write down your autobiography. I don't care, I would have to have jalapenos either way. You write a mix between spy stories and adventure novels with a sprinkle of karate. Your fictional biography has it all. Excerpts from your life as a secret agent, bomb countdowns that are interrupted only at the last second, exaggerated romances with the political enemy, twists. It's all completely fabricated, but you don't care about that. You have created a piece of pretty damn entertaining literature that will get the various juices of many a Yith flowing. If you regret one thing, it's that there are not enough. Briefings with the president? No one wants that unless you're Aaron Sorkin. Explosions. You give a shrill hoot, the Yith equivalent of a heavy sigh. It'll have to do. Otherwise, you'll end up rewriting the whole thing. After a few dull months, it's finally time for a party. In a large hall, one of the archivists gives an extremely long and boring lecture on the importance of rapeseed oil in various human and post-human civilizations. All the Yith gather around small bar tables in the area and listen intently as they sip on nourishing slime, which is slightly sweeter than usual. Afterwards, there is a competition in solving quantum equations. I feel like rapeseed oil is making a comeback. It was in like the White Door too. The different working groups, complete with nerdy and terribly boring team names, compete against each other. The archivists of your working group, the Tough Amoebicides, are kicked out early by the Atlantic Prehumanities and the persistent Platyhelminths to lukewarm applause. It is practically an orgiastic celebration by Yith standards. For you, the most important part of the evening is the first contact with other guests of the Yith. Other beings, pushed out of their bodies by the agents of the library and hurled through time, stand around in their guest bodies and talk to each other quietly. Fortunately, they have small name tags on which you can see not only their names and working group, but also their species of origin. With you at the table are two creatures who are identified as Gregor, post-Mohammedan Eurasia Homo sapiens, and Zegal, daughter of Kills, second Amazon Desert Epoch, Megaparaplaneta Technologicus. You have the urgent need to talk to someone to avoid dying of brain hemorrhage due to boredom. Faster Pussycat Kills must have been odd in this area. You gotta talk to Zegal. Right there in front of you stands the mind of a completely alien being in the body of another completely alien being. How do you even start a conversation like that? Zegal's feelers start to twitch. That's how all of my conversations start. What actually is Megaparaplaneta? Oh, I gotta hit on him. Hey baby, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? You know exactly how to talk to strange beings. After all, you've been on blind dates before. Zegal looks at you irritably. Of course it hurt, but how did you know that I had a cramp in my wings once? Because when I look in your eyes, I think you must be an angel. Wait, what? You're halfway through your chat routine before you realize it's going somehow differently to normal. Seagull seems very confused. What is this about? Are you trying to chat me up? Is this some kind of mating ritual? What is this about? Are you trying to chat me up? Is this some kind of mating ritual? Okay, human. My ancestors evolved from giant cockroaches, but even I find this pickup line too trashy. Are these the creatures that evolved from Mimic the movie? Also, okay, human is what I do when anyone tries to chat me up. Oh man, I kind of want to ask about giant cockroaches. Giant cockroaches? What a strange thought. Giant cockroaches? What is this, Joe's apartment? How did you manage to survive with all the surrounding humans? Oh, I only know humans from prehistoric museums. They've gone extinct. Apparently, you can't cope as well with radiation as we do, which is strange since it was you who contaminated everything with radiation. What do you mean contaminated? Well, after the big war in which you wiped yourselves out. So fallout is real. Oh, we would do such a thing. You've got to admit that you're feeling a little queasy in the general direction of your Yith stomach. You've often wondered, even fantasized, how mankind might exterminate itself, but when it is being described by a creature from the future, it doesn't seem quite as fun a thought experiment. Haha, okay, I'm sure the point where we all blow ourselves up is far off in the future, you say optimistically. Seagull makes a dismissive gesture with her claw. Oh, yes, don't worry. The nuclear war only happens at some point in the 21st century of the Common Era, and most people die before that anyway. I'm sure you're off the hook. Ha. No one's off the hook. The hook always brings you back, according to Blues Traveler. What actually is it? Nah, I'm gonna just say I'm gonna stand somewhere else. Your instincts to leave this place begin to gain the upper hand. I'm just gonna stand somewhere else, you say by way of clacking your scissors and then move your fleshy body a few yards away from Seagull. Fine, she clacks back. Talk to Gregor. I kind of wish they had made Gregor and Seagull and some of the others just look slightly different. Another human being. The first contact in months you've had with another person. You turn to Gregor. Sir, hi, it's nice to meet a fellow human being. Where exactly are you from? Gregor's Yith head flops towards you. This is me after quarantine. He seems to have been lost in thought, but you have the feeling that he is happy to have an opportunity to talk. Is this true? Another human being? I'm so happy to finally be able to talk to a comrade. My name is Gregor Ivashinkov. I'm from Kiev. Gregor's head flops about rhythmically. I love vodka. Then really? And when are you from? Gregor's upper tentacle briefly twitches. Only a few seconds later do you realize it was probably an attempt at a tired smile, performed by a person in a body that meets exactly 0 of the anatomical requirements for a smile. The last thing I remember is celebrating Labor Day with my friends. That was in 1980. I was promised that in 6 years at the very latest I would be allowed to go on with my life, and I will. Chernobyl, here I come. Luckily, you're currently in a robust Yith body because your human face would be chalk white right now. You... Oh, I wonder if I should. That's playing with the timeline. But I mean, they have access to all this knowledge. They have access to that. Warn Gregor of Chernobyl. I'd stay away from Chernobyl, mate. You warn him with a slow clacking of your scissors. What? But why? He clacks back. At least now you have his full attention. Well, Chernobyl, you continue. Everyone knows about Chernobyl in my time. Gregor's eyes widen. Yes? Why is that? Well, because of the... I don't know, reactor incident. There was this awful reactor incident, oh, damn it. If only you'd paid a bit more attention to things while you were still human. You desperately tried to combine the tidbits of knowledge you have into a plausible story. Hundreds of acres of land were contaminated, maybe even more. Gregor does not seem convinced. It all sounds to me like you know very little about Mother Russia, my friend. His scissors snips back and forth 3 times. They have a strange sense of humor in the capitalist states. Your honorable intention to warn Gregor of his potentially painful death is beginning to waver. The guy is slowly but surely getting on your nerves. What's more, he will have forgotten everything he learned here in his time with the Yith. You've got to let him live his life. Oh, I forgot he was going to forget about it anyway, so there's really no reason to warn him. I'm going to go ahead and leave the party. This is how you pass your time. Despite your initial bumps, you end up getting more closely acquainted with Gregor and Seagull. Your shared fate is what ties you together. Over the coming months and years, you end up becoming friends and sharing common interests. That's like coworker friends, so that's not gonna last. You spend most of your time studying human history. Gregor manages to get you interested in the history of mankind and Earth in general, and you spend a lot of time in the library or talking to other guests of the Yith.
You become quite an expert in human history, even epochs whose knowledge is almost completely lost in your time, like the Chronicles of Hyperborea. You also learn many things about the lives and the history of the Native Americans, things no one ever taught you at school. You have long and intense debates with Zekel about philosophy and learn new and interesting things about yourself. Sometimes, in quiet moments, you wonder what you would do if you were back in your old body. You get the feeling that you have never really learned to appreciate it. This is how the years go by, and towards the end, the boredom with the Yith becomes almost bearable, and then your time with the Yith is over. Finally, the day has come. You are being led in the transport room. It's the same room you arrived in so many years ago. When the process starts, you overhear two of the librarians talk. You have erased this participant's memory, right? There are quite a few typos, which I'm a little concerned about. I thought you were doing that. Oh, shit. And you're gone. You wake up as you have woken up many times before, after drunken nights out in some dive bar, after awful parties at which you drank yourself into a stupor. But it's different this time. The flickering before your eyes ceases. The agony and disorientation give way to a sense of clarity that you have rarely felt. Your normally slightly hazy thoughts are clear, not a shallow pond, but a crystal clear lake. Is Jason in them? Your memory is filled with knowledge from the intensive studies you have undertaken in the Great Library. So much knowledge. How did I remember that, though? Your gaze wanders through the room in which you find yourself. The room sits there calmly between these four well-known walls. You are at home, on your sofa. Well, technically it's not your sofa, it's a completely new one without the bugs and rats that had moved into a nest in the bottom. Everything is unnaturally clean, and the sofa does not seem to be the only piece of furniture that has been replaced. Wait, so you had like a whole, poor man's Disney princess vibe going on with your sofa? Later, you will find out that the Yith, who had swapped places with you, has not only used his 6 years for highly efficient studies, he also applied for a position at the largest historical museum in Boston, successfully, of course, because the Yith do not do things by halves. No half measures. Your eyes light up as you read the number on your last paycheck. You hold the paper so close to your face that your nose brushes the paper. I need a Yith to take over my body. Twice a year, twice as often as you normally would, your possessed body has contacted her family, giving what appear to be completely neutral, boring, and meaningless confirmations that you are fine. There are postcards from your relatives sending greetings from their holidays. Postcards would say that they are proud of you, proud that you've managed to turn your life around. That's certainly one way of putting it. The Yith has eaten well, fresh fruit, the prescribed daily minimum of vitamins, proteins, and fiber to make his studies as efficient as possible. The Yith also exercised. In the bathroom, you look at your body and stretch it in front of the mirror. You take off one layer of clothing after another. 6 years have gone by. Did you put on a layer of clothing for each? Intrigued, you look at your face in the mirror, a few more wrinkles for sure, yet you feel that your life is only just beginning. Yes, we can. You spend 6 years of your life among the Yith, as if you had anything else going on. Okay, so basically, at this point, I could load a specific chapter, or I could just load any chapter that I wanted. So if I quit... So basically, the harbor is the last town that I went into. So if I wanted to see the full mystery, I could go back to the harbor and then just restart from there. So I basically got one of the endings, but I didn't solve the mystery.
Great work, Brad. Great work, Brad. I tried, and therefore no one should criticize me.
Alright, so that was the Innsmouth Case. Mega thanks again for the code. It is set in the Lovecraftian universe where every decision you have has a lasting effect. It is an interactive book with 27 possible endings and a blend of offbeat humor with some horror and Lovecraftian elements. There are over 30 characters, and the entire plot is basically solving the disappearance of Tabitha Marsh, the little girl, which we did not do today, but you can if you'd like, by getting it on Steam or also getting it on a mobile device. I definitely liked it. There were a few things I had problems with. The extensive amounts of typos in it seemed a little bit odd, considering that it's an interactive book and that's kind of the focus. I definitely hope they kind of patch those out or change them at some point. I think that a few more graphics when you're talking to characters would have been nice, particularly during the Yith sequence. It gets a little bit repetitive in terms of visuals, but it is a book, so at the end of the day, I don't really blame them for that. It was definitely a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the concept of these interactive books. Basically, choose your own adventures for the modern age, so definitely check it out, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.